episodes begin with "Once upon a time." This one, however, is not a fairy tale, nor is it boring. The story begins on a chilly winter's day. The sun was already set low on the horizon, making the snow glisten in the forest. A few mice squeaked and fed each other nuts they had diligently collected in the fall. Their squeaking stopped when a hissing sound interrupted the previously harmonious nature. With each step, the snow melted, leaving a small paw print of water. Other animals were also startled by the sudden, unfamiliar sound and hid their nests. The previously lively and Christmassy laugh had disappeared. What remained was a single orange creature. It bore a strong resemblance to a bunny, but there was something wrong with it. Its fur blazed like pure fire, and its little paws were the reason why the snow was melting. Lonely but silent, it hopped through the cold, gloomy landscape. Some mice thought they could hear a little sob. After a little while, the creature felt a pleasant warmth radiating from a small house. Curious, but afraid that it would not be accepted, it stumbled towards the little house with its small flame. Pleasant music that had never been heard before could be heard from inside the house. It smelled like cookies and baked apples. It also heard two voices, high-pitched female voice and a lower male one. They sounded as they were both having fun. Curiosity overcame fear, and the exhausted creature hopped onto a bench in front of the kitchen window. Both voices were coming from the kitchen. It looked like they were both baking. The cookies, perhaps. The woman inside realized almost immediately that something was different. Not knowing what she perceived or what was going on, she looked confusedly at the window and then pranced over to the creature, which stared back in panic. She opened the window and took it lovingly in her gentle, warm hands. The fire bunny knew instinctively that it didn't need to be afraid. You could hear a purr and a "aww" from a red-haired demon. "Look at it, Nato! Isn't it cute?" She hopped over to Nato and proudly looked over her new acquisition. "Pari, what is that?" he asked irritably, sniffing the creature. "I am not quite sure, but I sense it must come from the demon world. I also feel some kind of connection. Like I can read the thoughts, the feelings. Feels very alone. Maybe it's a soul?" Pari replied. And Nato sighed. "Alright, what could possibly go wrong? Look at its flaming ears, it looks like it's very weak. We should warm it up and maybe give it a name. But it's not sleeping in my basement." Nato wrinkled his nose and looked a little offended. What about Humpy?" Pari and Humpy both beamed and made Nato blush. "Welp, the name is decided. Go to the fireplace with Humpy. I'll just finish baking real quick." A few minutes and a few marshmallows roasting in the fireplace later, Humpy seemed much more alert. He hopped off Pari's lap and explored the little hut in the woods. Everything in the living room was decorated for Christmas. A Christmas tree with few presents underneath glittered in the warm light. Pari had fallen asleep, so Humpy made it his mission to look at everything. It crept up to the Christmas tree and looked at the presents before climbing up the tree. Why did he do that? I have no idea. Some Christmas baubles fell down and bounced around the living room. Pari was still asleep, despite the noise Humpy was making. A little carelessly it climbed back onto the floor and decided to leave the tree alone for the time being. Hanging above the fireplace were photos of Pari and Nato, as well as other friends with whom they could both be seen laughing. Curious, Humpy hopped onto a pile of books next to the fireplace and then looked at the pictures on the mantelpiece. In the process, he accidentally knocked off a few books off the pile. This rumbling didn't wake Pari up either. However, Nato came into the living room from the kitchen and took Humpy in his arms. "You can't be so loud when Pari is asleep. Come here, let's tidy up a bit together." He put Humpy in his hood and put the books back into the pile. And then he collected the Christmas baubles and decorated a Christmas tree with them again. After a few minutes, he heard a soft snore. Humpy had curled up and was sleeping contentedly in his hood. Like the succubus, like the souls, huh? He smiled and went back to the kitchen. Once there, he arranged the cookies on a small plate and prepared the coffee and the hot cocoa. He knew that Pari liked her coffee so much, so he made her coffee with extra love. Humpy also got a small cup of hot chocolate. After everything was ready, he put it on the table in the living room and gently woke Pari up. "Hey, I made coffee," he whispered in her ear, and she literally jumped up. "Coffee?" she said excitedly and went to the table. "Those cookies look cute," she mumbled before taking a big sip of her coffee. Humpy slowly woke up too and hopped out of his hood. He sat down at the little mug and drank his cocoa and ate a few cookies. It seemed like a small family. The evening passed in a blur, and all three finally fell asleep on the sofa. Humpy, who was more than happy to feel finally at home, he fell asleep on Pari's chest. Respectfully, of course. The next morning, Nato prepared breakfast. It was already December 24th. Christmas was just around the corner. Demons didn't really celebrate Christmas, at least not in the traditional sense. It would be very ironic if they were to celebrate the birth of Christ. However, some demons living on Earth did celebrate the gift-giving, as did Nato and Pari. Nato already had the presents ready, but Pari was, as always, on her last legs. So after breakfast, she and Humpy got ready to go into town. "Do you need anything, Nato?" asked Pari as she wrapped her scarf around her neck and put Humpy in it. Nato shook his head. "Just be careful. I don't like you walking the streets alone. Oh, wait, and maybe popcorn," he said, slightly sad, looking down at the ground. Pari tossed Nato's hair. "Nothing will happen," she said encouragingly and took the keys. "See you later." The streets were all enveloped in the Christmas lights and decorations. It made otherwise grey interior look warm and inviting. In the air was the smell of freshly roasted almonds, delicious cookies, and the souls, looking stressed, but kinda happy. The children who stopped to marvel at the shop windows showed especially happy souls. Pari skipped along with Humpy, who couldn't be noticed by the other people, through the streets, hopping from one store to another. "What do you think Nato would like?" Pari asked Humpy. An older couple noticed the talk and eyed Pari critically. Pari rolled her eyes and ignored it. Humpy also looked a little lost, so Pari instinctively went into the first bookshop on the street. She found new manga, which she packed for Nato. Everything was overrun, lots of people were looking for presents, and so Pariku was literally pushed back and forth. After Pariku had paid for the book, she continued her way, but she didn't get far. Her arm was grabbed and pulled abruptly into an alley. "Hey, what?" she said, but didn't get far. Her mouth was covered with a cloth. 2 succubi and 2 incubi stood in front of her. "We're taking you back home. Lilith will be thrilled to see you," said one of the succubus, a blonde beauty adorned with peacock feathers. "And to punish," an incubi grinned, finishing the sentence by running his fingers through his brown hair. "I'm not coming home with you," Pari said snappishly and tried to pull herself together. But the second the incubi took her hands behind her and pushed her to the ground with a jerk, "You don't have a chance." Tears streamed down Pariku's face as she heard those words. Earth had become her home, her place where everything was in order. She already collected so many souls and felt safe and secure with them. She and Nato have so many friends, real friends, who accept them for who they are. They even have an egg as a friend. Who would have ever thought that? And try as she might, she couldn't fight the incubus that was pushing her face more and more into the dirt. She closed her eyes and continued to cry. The succubi and incubi formed a portal to get back into the demon world. But before they could close the portal, an egg rolled over the magic formula and destroyed it. A howl could be heard, and a blue-haired person with ears could be seen rushing bloodthirstily at one of the incubi and tearing his face apart. The egg rolled over to Pari and asked frantically, "Are you okay?" Pari nodded weakly and put the egg in her jacket after giving it a big hug. "Thank you, Lidus." More people came into the scene, including a trainee doctor throwing a scalpel at an incubus, another man boring a succubi to exhaustion with the 57 precepts of Zote, plus A living decoy appeared, who distracted others, so Natto could take care of everyone. Finally, there were 2 men, one screaming, "For Mama!" and one full parry, throwing snowballs at the enemy group until they retreated. That wasn't the last time, Pariku. The blunt succubus hissed before all 4 retreated into the shadows without parry. Silence fell, and Pariku couldn't help but hug them all in turn. "I told you to take care of yourself," Natto grumbled as he hugged Pari. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping away her tears. "Thank you all for being here." "We are always here, Pariku, just like you are always here," they all replied and laughed. Together, they returned to the hut in the forest. Once there, they cooked and ate together, exchanged gifts, and had a relaxing time. While they were spending time together, Pariku remembered something. "By the way, how did you know where I was?" Pari asked her friends. "Well," said Eludus, "Humpy just jumped out of your scarf and let Natto know. And Natto let us know." Pari smiled warmly at Humpy. The hero of the day was to be celebrated. "And Humpy?" "Yeah, Humpy is you. You have done something incredible today. I am so proud of you and hope you have a wonderful Christmas or any other holiday you celebrate. May all your wishes come true. Thank you so much for being here."